you want Sami Zayn to have that proper, I guess, struggle, he needs to face more adversity in overcoming things as a face. I think with the recent US title win that kind of happened on SmackDown in Paris with Solo Sikoa and him, was it was a great moment, I think, for the fans and stuff like that. Sami is now stuck with a consolation prize because he has not once really expressed any desire for this title. He moves over to SmackDown in a move that is kind of weird because Seth Rollins kind of offered him that same deal, except the condition was that there was a WWE title opportunity with the champion at that time. And the fact that he like shot that down out of principle to want to earn a title shot doesn't really make sense now, because he went over to SmackDown under that same pretext, basically for the US title, which is already not necessarily a title he's won before, but is not the altitude that he's been expressing the want for that character. So Sami Zayn being complacent even with the US title in the first place, and not even in promos referencing how maybe with Solo this is kind of something that's beneath him because he wants to do something greater, doesn't help Sami's case when he's, you know, obviously in character, capable enough to win the US title. He's beaten Gunther for that, so I feel like there was a thorough line you could have had in him overcoming Gunther for a world heavyweight title, but you know, he was super close with Roman, so there is credibility there for him to vie for one. But I think just story wise, you know, with Cross gone, there's no real entry point for him into that fold. And I do believe that even WWE believes that right now, and they think kind of giving him these side accolades is worth it, but it's not, because you just had a US title storyline with the whole bloodline that I think elevated that title. Sami Zayn pigeonholing that US title does essentially leave the rest of the division that was using it as kind of a tool, right, to further their stories. Now kind of with Sami in the position of you know, that title holder and that bearer to the opening of the mid card again, will they actually properly have him elevate people like they kind of did with Braun Breaker? You know, will Jacob and Solo be able to kind of mix it up properly with Sami to further kind of elevate that US title? You know, will Sami maybe fight, I guess, maybe Jimmy or something like that to kind of push things forward? There's a lot of possibilities, I guess, that we can talk about, but the problem is that many other people are deserving and feel like they have more momentum than Sami really at the moment. Sami is someone who has that legacy built in with him with the fan base, so a lot of people, you know, appreciate him, and I think like we always will, you know, because of how good he is and what he brings. But it does kind of irk the question of what their MO is with everybody on the roster when they've had Solo and Jacob kind of run this whole feud, and then Sami kind of just comes by and takes the title as soon as he moves to SmackDown, because there's no real prospects for Sami right now on the show that we can really draw a line to quickly, except Solo and that immediate bloodline tie, right? I guess if he's there to enhance that storyline for now because they're trying to keep him busy, that's cool, but I do think that there is a problem with overexposure. I think with Sami Zayn, like, besides being in places that you know, I guess, like, you know, internationally that will elicit that response because they're just clamoring for wrestling in general, there have been people like a Carrion, you know, there have been, you know, even recently with R-Truth and you know, even with like the New Day and stuff like that, where they are getting TV time, but they're not getting a prominent you know, even like 5 to 10 minute promo spot to further like a legit PLE feud or something. Whereas like Sami Zayn will get last minute stuff like that just off of kind of his legacy and name already, when, like we just said, he's still trying to vie for a world title, I guess, spot, right? And doesn't seem to have an actual path line despite interacting with everyone on the roster. That's the problem with him not turning heel in the first place with Karrion Kross, to me, is that Sami Zayn's character is extremely stale, unfortunately. You know, I think there's not really much left to explore with the current version of his character, unfortunately. I think the depths of betrayal and stuff like that you can explore, you've explored with Kevin Owens. You know, I think Cross was really the only one who was presenting him with, maybe into a lesser extent, maybe Drew, presenting him with that heelish turn and becoming someone who, kind of throwing back to that smarmy character he was playing with, like the beret hat and whatever, but like an actual capable heel that can get into people's minds, and it is a true sociopath. The person who did initially join the bloodline. I think to wrap around and bring that character back would be so popular with fans, and in a way it'd be a heel that we'd boo, but kind of like Seth Rollins, where it's like we enjoy his work, but we do for the most part kind of boo everything he's doing. There's a lot of things to kind of consider though with the Sami Zayn kind of position though, is like he is kind of like, I think they see him as like a Daniel Bryan, where he's always the heartfelt, scrappy underdog guy that they can put in that position no matter what, which I don't think works for, it just doesn't work to a certain extent. I would hope that maybe moving forward, there's like some sort of US Open title thing that Sami starts to do, since he is kind of a workhorse, right? And you can kind of make that US title a workhorse thing. This could be just a quick kind of potato thing, because they kind of have been potatoing the US title the last couple of years, to be honest, in general. Like, I don't know anyone's reign that's been longer than probably like 6 months. I'd have to look back really to see the numbers, but it seems like that title's been passed around at the moment, and there, besides this Solo and Jacob feud, there hasn't been really like too much of feuds, like, I guess, built around the title. I feel that in general Sami Zayn, kind of doesn't necessarily need a repackage, but I think he does need a new narrative point or hook. He needs something like extremely devastating or good to happen to his character to kind of push him forward. I don't think winning more mid-card belts or winning like tournaments and stuff is really going to do that. I think what needs to happen now is that he needs to push and vie for that US or that world title, or turn heel. I think going into the Rumble 26, if they do have eyes on Sami like winning that whole thing, and they think that building credibility means like giving him accolades, they got to do that in an interesting way that doesn't feel artificial. And Cody's adversity from 39 to 240, he fought Lesnar, you know what I mean? He had to win the Rumble again, and there was the whole fiasco of that Rock stuff, and Reigns kind of losing it and becoming, they're all kind of drugged with power. That made the whole ride interesting. It's like you need to kind of bring that momentum to Sami Zayn if there's going to be a legitimate like kind of push for him moving forward. They're going to have to kind of plant the seeds, I think, now, for if they want to make even the character struggle of Sami wanting to turn but wanting to do the greater good a thing. And I think them acknowledging that sooner rather than later would actually help than if they were to do like some sort of kind of maybe 3-month program where all of a sudden Sami is now like vying for everything because the Royal Rumble is coming close, and he has all these epiphanies about maybe trying to turn. I would think a long, like, if they really wanted to build this, let him like start losing even now, have him go on a run where like he's trying to be earnest. He might have beaten Gunther and everything, but there is really no one on his side, because all he does is expand his energy for other people, and so they can't be there for him. And I think that is really the next story that we have to tell with Sami Zayn to keep him interesting, and to keep the fans that are most engaged in him. And I do think he's always someone who will have fans, but I think kind of similar to Rhea Ripley, he's extremely over, but he's not doing anything compelling that will keep him over. You know what I mean? Like, he himself is over, and the talent they have when they come out will always exude confidence, and people will gravitate towards that. But eventually, just like what happened with Cena, is that there will be a resentment and contemplative, or not contemplative, but a resentment and contempt is the word I was looking for the stagnant position that character is in. The same thing that would happen to like a Goku in Dragon Ball Z, right? Because their character, while in fun and interesting, is staying the same despite the stakes and other characters, things changing and their circumstances changing, which doesn't feel authentic, right? And that's what it comes down to, is that Sami Zayn, sometimes it doesn't feel authentic despite him being authentic. I think that's what kind of needs to happen for Sami Zayn, is some sort of lean. I don't know if it's a lean into a friend he has down in Mexico that's feeding orphans, or if that is back to the sociopath that can get into everyone's skin that Roman saw in a way as useful. Maybe Sami gets a faction with how capable he is, and that's how I feel about him. I just feel it's so weird that he's someone who's like seen as grasping for straws, but he's so capable. He's defeated Gunther. He's main evented WrestleMania. He's you know what I mean? Like, he's not someone who you should really bet against. He's someone who is the odds. So let me know what you guys kind of think about Sami Zayn in general. I think there's kind of some work to be done kind of with his character at this point, because I think we're kind of at a stagnant point for him.